Hey everybody, this is JD Gaming back today with a completely new deck to introduce to you guys. This time we're bringing you S.A.L.T. So, quick history lesson on this deck. I used to play Hat, so hands, artifact, trap tricks, and I like that type of a control style stun deck that didn't just completely lock your opponent out of the game, but kind of reacted more to what your opponent was able to do. And then, a couple of months back, I ended up building 𝗏𝗏, which was basically Heroic Champion Excalibur with artifacts, Lilith, Lady of Lament from the Lair of Darkness deck that helps us access our trap cards, and then Trap Tricks, which kind of ties nicely with the artifacts. But this time I was kind of inspired by that 𝗏𝗏 deck, which kind of was a bridge hybrid of Hat and whatever this thing ended up becoming. It let me get some really interesting things like Reckless Greed for a powerful draw engine, and then I figured, well, if I have Reckless Greed and that gives me a powerful draw engine, what if I incorporated something like Card of Demise or even more draw power? And then that kind of just snowballed into a different alphabet soup strategy that still focuses on stunning the opponent, but does it in a slightly different way now that we have to build around Card of Demise. But I think this is a pretty interesting thing. If you like the type of slow-paced, think about what you're doing and react to your opponent's plays type of a deck, I think this might be a fun strategy for you. But essentially, if you haven't figured it out, S.A.L.T is going to be Scapegoat, Artifact, Lilith, and Thunder King. So at this point, is it really a Hat deck? Probably not. The only semblance to it is that alphabet soup quality of just mixing together a bunch of acronyms. But I do like this strategy nonetheless, so I wanted to bring it to you guys. Obviously, you guys have never seen this thing before, so this is going to be a Let's Build as always, and I will be explaining my reasoning and thought process for why I put certain cards in here, how I ended up where I did, and feel free to let me know if maybe I took a wrong turn somewhere and this isn't something I should be doing. But anyway, if you want to see the alphabetical profile, that's at the end of the video, so feel free to check out the timestamps in the table of contents down below in the description box that I always put there, so you'll be able to filter through as quickly as you need to the different sections. And if you have any questions on things afterwards, feel free to check out the middle part of the video, where hopefully I've done a decent job introducing this new strategy to you guys. So without further ado, let's build S.A.L.T. The first part in building any deck is to establish the theme and to build the deck's core. And I already told you that this is going to be based on the acronym S.A.L.T, and so we're going to put those pieces together and explain why exactly they're in here. So the first main card is Lilith, the L in S.A.L.T, and it's Lilith, Lady of Lament from the Lair of Darkness structure deck. She has 2,000 attack for level 3, which is awesome until you normal summon her, and then she gets cut down to 1,000, which is kind of bad. But she has a very powerful quick effect that is worth building around. So during either player's turn, you could tribute a dark monster like her and reveal 3 normal traps from your deck. Your opponent has to randomly choose one of those to set to your field, and you shuffle the rest back into your deck, and that's a hard once per turn effect. Cool thing is it's random, so your opponent can't check what you're putting face down on the field, and that lets you play some mind games with your opponent because they don't know for sure what you chose as long as you didn't choose 3 of the exact same thing. Bit of a trade-off there. You could play 3 of the same thing and then guarantee you get something, or play 2 and 1, or maybe 1 of 3 different things, and then they're like, I don't know what I'm playing around. So that's the fun in this strategy. I definitely like it for that. And then the main thing that we want to play with this, the trap, is Artifact Sanctum, which is of course a normal trap that has a very powerful ability. It's able to go and summon out an artifact monster during our opponent's turn, which is really cool because these guys trigger. Scythe shuts our opponent out of the extra deck for a turn, and then Moral Attack can get rid of a card that's already face up on the field without even targeting because it's going to choose during resolution of that effect. Very easy way to remove your opponent's threats that already exist or to shut your opponent out. So this is a really good card that pretty much buys you a turn when you play it, and that's why it's actually worth building this type of a deck in the first place. It's because this is worth searching with Lilith, Lady of Lament. And then if any of these guys die, you have trigger effects, of course. The artifacts will just summon themselves and immediately activate during your opponent's turn. Or if you get one of the sanctums killed, that's awesome because now you flip it as a chain, you summon your guy, and then when this is destroyed, don't forget it does have the ability to kill another one of your opponent's cards, which is a very nice way of revenge killing your opponent when they play something like a Nightmare Phoenix and stumble into you. So that's the A of S.A.L.T. Then we have 3 copies of Thunder King Ryo. This is the T part, so now we have alt. Basically, this is a 1900 beater. It used to be popular way back in the day. I think it's kind of seeing some resurgence now with Sky Strikers being so focused on searching, because Thunder King, if you guys remember, makes it so neither player can add cards cards from their deck to their hand except by drawing them. So it's like a continuous Droll and Lockbird type of effect. And then its other ability is you can send this card from your field to the graveyard to negate the special summon of one of your opponent's monsters and destroy that monster. So that's an inherent summon. So like something from the extra deck is going to be swallowed up with this as long as it's not through a card effect like a fusion spell. So Link monsters, Synchros, Xyz, things like that, you can just swallow up with Thunder King Ryo, which is quite nice. 1900 attack lets you do a lot of damage. And as we'll get to in just a second, that continuous effect is really nice because we'll be able to abuse that by bringing Thunder King Ryo back to our field when our opponent least expects it. And then the last component of the main acronym SALT is Scapegoat. This is literally in here because I figured, hey, you know, I want to play Card of Demise as I mentioned in the intro here, so I want to minimize the monsters I'm playing. All the artifact related cards I can just set, right? So those are not an issue. These are the only 6 normal summonable monsters in my deck. Chances are I'm gonna draw one of them. Sometimes I draw 2, oh well. But the whole idea is now, what else can I do to gain some more impact on the board without committing too many normal monsters to the deck that I'd have to draw into and play? That would obviously clog up with Card of Demise. Scapegoat was a very nice answer to that. So just set this thing during your opponent's end phase, flip it up for 4 free tokens, and then you'll be able to go and make a lot of big extra deck plays. Definitely like Scapegoat, almost as an accident. It just happened to be SALT, but you know, I think if your opponent loses to a deck like this, they're gonna feel the SALT. Now it's time to look at some of the branching plays from this deck to kind of flesh out the core here. I like playing 2 copies of a lot of different normal traps. So first is Back to the Front. This thing is awesome for a few reasons. You bring back a monster from your graveyard in defense position. That's just all it does, right? So you play 2 copies. Why 2 and not 3? Well, again, I never really want to play 3 of anything in this deck because I want to keep my opponent guessing. The power of keeping my opponent guessing is going to be really, really good. Plus, we have so much draw power, as we'll get to later in this deck, that I don't need to play 3 copies to guarantee something. 2/3 of a chance is a good enough shot, especially with all the searching abilities and draw power. So just play the 2 to throw your opponent off guard. Lets you bring back an artifact, and that's immediately going to trigger during your opponent's turn. You could bring back Lilith, and she has the ability to tribute herself off to save herself and get another trap if you want. Or you can use her, maybe during the end phase, bring her back. She's a 2000 beater now because her attack's been reset. You could bring out Thunder King in response to your opponent's search effect, and now they can't search whatever card. So this is a very flexible card that works with all of your key components, triggers everything, makes Thunder King even more annoying. It's just a really awesome card, so I definitely love Back to the Front at 2 copies. Then I like playing Ring of Destruction at 2, basically because this is a generic removal card that helps get rid of your opponent's things, deal some damage, so it helps you win games through your opponent's now empty-ish field. And the main reason I like playing that is because of Storming Mirror Force. So Storming Mirror Force in theory is really awesome because it's able to get rid of your opponent's established board, and that works except if you set Storming Mirror Force and your opponent knows you set it for sure, they're gonna just go Nightmare Phoenix or something and get rid of it. Not the best situation, but a couple things going for us in this case that helps us play around that stuff. First, again, we're only playing 2 copies of this card, so they don't know if we got Storming Mirror Force or not. If you choose 2 of these Stormings and 1 Ring of Destruction, odds are you got one of these 2, so they don't want to just blindly attack you. But if they try and Nightmare Phoenix into your card, it could be a Ring of Destruction that just makes their summon and discard a huge minus because now your Ring of Destruction can destroy that Link 2 or whatever else your opponent may be investing into. Now they ended up not being able to kill your back row. So I just love the mind games created by playing 2 of each of these guys. If you need to go more for one or the other, you could definitely do that. Heck, depending on the situation, if you have an artifact in your grave already, you could even choose the Back to Front, and that might give you a Scythe back that helps you play around your opponent anyway. So lots of really powerful plays that you can do with these guys. And then just for good measure, I like playing the 2 Torrential Tribute because even though this does kill your own board, unlike Storming, the fact that it's chainable to your opponent's play, anytime they summon something, makes it a little bit more of like a hybrid between these 2. So this is just to make sure you have ways to get around your opponent's plays, and then you can trigger this yourself. But yeah, that's pretty much the nice little toolbox of annoying cards that your opponent has to deal with. And then the draw power of this deck. So like, I wasn't kidding when I said we have a lot of draw power. So first, I like playing 3 Reckless Greeds. I introduced this in the Halt deck, and the whole idea is Reckless Greed lets you draw 2 cards and then skip your next 2 draw phases, right? First of all, the cool thing is that's not restricted to any specific timing or trigger, so I can go and play this as one of the cards that I set or potentially set, and my opponent doesn't know. Like, they don't want to kill Reckless Greed either, because if they throw a card effect into this, they're losing that effect, and I just draw 2 anyway. The 2 draw phases you skip obviously don't stack, which means if I play 2 of these or all 3 of these in a turn, I don't lose anything. So usually what I do is, if I have access to one of these, I Lilith for the second second copy, and that'll let me draw 4. Usually between those and the draw spells I may draw into because of those, I'll probably see the third copy, set that, and then I can make it so I only skip a total of 2 draw phases ever, and it becomes even more consistent in this strategy because we're playing 3 copies of Card of Demise. So the whole point of playing a very slim monster count in this deck was to be able to play this. You can't special summon this turn, but hey, you set Scapegoat, you set Artifacts, you summon Thunder King Ryo, and you normal summon Lilith in order to search your trap. You don't special summon during your turn pretty much ever in this deck unless you're utilizing the tokens, which means you're able to go and Card of Demise for the 3 cards, just empty your hand, draw 3. This card is just insane. Remember, you can't damage your opponent the turn you play this though. That's another restriction. You can't special, and you have to empty your hand at the end phase, and you can't do damage. So do remember all of the drawbacks of this card. If you do, you'll be golden with this thing because it just gives you so much advantage. Helps you dig for your Reckless Greeds or whatever. Then I like playing 3 Pot of Duality, which at first looks kind of contradictory to the Thunder King, but remember, it doesn't interact badly in both directions. It only is a problem if you have Thunder King first. So Duality actually helps you dig for all your pieces. Again, Scapegoat you can set immediately. Thunder King you can actually summon after playing Duality. Lilith you can use to search something, set an artifact. All your key cards work with Duality, and so I do like the 3 copies to ensure you get what you want. And then the last card here is a double Pot of Desires. Basically, 3 is overkill in a 40 card deck, but this gives you free cards. Everything you need is at triplicate, so you're really not at risk of losing all of your pieces. So this just gives you more free cards, not only to, you know, set up these dumb things like get into a Card of Demise with multiple Reckless Greeds or whatever, but it helps you get into whatever you need to make the best situation possible in your hands. So definitely like all that draw power. How many cards is that? That's like 9 plus 2, it's 11 search / draw cards here, which is absolutely nuts. That's why this deck is so consistent. And then the last section here is just the tech cards. So we're basically going to have a Monster Reborn, which is in some ways better than Back to Front, but don't forget, Back to Front being chainable is so good because you can outplay your opponent with it. Reborn's still nice, you know, bring back a Link monster while you're Scapegoat playing, and then you'll be able to go for even higher Links by using the Link ratings to your advantage. 𝕮𝖊𝖇𝖑𝖊𝖓 is just another mass removal card. We have so many mass removal options because this deck is so good when you go first, but if you go second, you need a way to break your opponent's board that doesn't use monsters that special summon or go from the hand. That's why I didn't play Raw Sphere mode or the Kaijus in the main here. Definitely consider siding them, but 𝕮𝖊𝖇𝖑𝖊𝖓 is a safer pick because if I draw it with Card of Demise, hey, just set this thing and then it doesn't interfere, then I could flip it if I need to later. And then the last few traps I like playing are just Solemns. So 1 Warning because it deals with all the summon cards, and then 3 Strike. No Judgment just because when you're playing Ring of Destruction for damage and that's searchable, it's a bit risky to be playing Solemn Judgment for half your life on top of all this. But if you're not playing Judgment, you can easily resolve 1 or 2 of these guys and still do a Ring of Destruction and still be fine. The control that these cards give you is just absolutely phenomenal. With all the draw searchers and everything, you're going to get these a lot more often than you would think. So even though they're not normal traps, you know, they're just powerful enough to warrant play. So that is the main. And then the last section of the deck has to do with the Scapegoat tokens. So basically it's the extra deck, right? So how can we make use of these guys? So let's say you just activated Scapegoat, you end up with all 4 of these tokens, right? A lot of times what I do is I'll turn one of these into a Link Spider, who's an Earth Cybers, and then I'll take another one and turn it into a Link Kuriboh, who is a Dark Cybers. So just from here, you have 2 Cybers type monsters, so hey, I could go for Akashic Magician, bounce away my opponent's monster, and that can be pretty useful. Also has an ability, of course, where you can mill things, but in this deck, it's not the most useful thing. So it's really just to get rid of something that your opponent may have thrown out at you. Another thing you could go with this is Earth monsters, including Link Spider, can easily go for Mrs. Radiant, and then that's pretty good because now if you were to, let's say you used a token and that guy here, right? So now this basically helps you bridge very nicely into a Ningirsu and 𝗍𝖃 play, because it's very easy to have different types and attributes in this deck. Earth Beast and Dark Cybers can go for this. You can bring back with a token in the Ningirsu. This play does require you to have 1 more monster on the field, either normal summon that turn or previously played. So it's fairly easy to do, but definitely know that this is a branching option. The reason this is so good is because 𝗍𝖃 protects parts of your board and Ningirsu draws you a card immediately because you have 𝗍𝖃 here that he's pointing to, and you can send a card on either side of the field to the graveyard, which is a nice piece of removal that's even better than Nightmare Unicorn in a lot of cases. So I definitely like that. Some other branching plays you could do with this type of thing. You could go for just, generic link 2s. You could go for Nightmare Phoenix. Generic spell and trap removal is nice, and then you can go and link these guys up to like a �11𝗨 or something. So that's an option. Proxy Dragon just gives you another Cyberse monster, so in case you need the same types for whatever reason, you can do that. I suppose it helps you play around Rivalry. This thing is just nice in general in protecting your board. It's just another generic link 2, so that's why that thing is there. And then as we continue climbing up, these are just like possible end boards you can end up with. So 𝗮𝗄𝗑 is in here literally because he's a big beater who gets even bigger, helps you push for game because he can go up to 3,800 attack, which is quite nice. You have to realize that's almost half your opponent's life points, and if you have a Ring of Destruction killing your opponent's card, that's a very good amount of damage you can put on board very easily with Scapegoat. Nightmare Unicorn, again, most of the time I do go for 𝕮𝖊𝖇𝖑𝖊𝖓, but this is just a generic option to go for that. So maybe if you wanted to go for Nightmare Phoenix to pop a card, it may be worth going for this thing and then getting rid of another card. That way, it gives you some options and branching plays, and you can even recycle your own cards depending on what you need here. Like, you can take your own artifact and kick it back into your deck with a unicorn, and then that would let you recycle that as a random fringe use. Not that you would do that most of the time. And then some generic link 4s to finish us up here. So �11𝗨 is just good enough to warrant play. Firewall Dragon, just go for Firewall and pass, right? Now, honestly, this thing, it depends on what setup you have. If you have like a Monster Reborn, if you were able to Artifact Sanctum during the last turn, then you might have some extra monsters and it may be worth going for Firewall. Especially with Reborn bringing you back a link 2 or a bigger monster, it is possible to get Firewall co-linked to something, and then in that case, that type of protection ability could be nice as well. You don't have enough monsters to really take advantage of the spam special summon ability, but bouncing something back could be useful depending on the situation. So that's in here just in case. And then we have Griffin, which is just a good card to end on. Remember, this lets you add a spell or trap from grave back to hand, so that could let you add Pot of Desires, or you could go ahead and set Card of Demise for next turn since you can't play it this turn anyway by Griffin's effect and Card of Demise's restrictions. Just lots of little things you could do for utility. You could set an Artifact Sanctum again. Just the fact that it shuts down anything not linked to a monster from using its abilities, it's a pretty nice control card, so I definitely do like it as just a one-of. Then we have Saryuja because, if you're able to go and turn a token into Linkuriboh, and then a token into a Spider, and then you have a token, and then you have any other monster, that lets you go Saryuja. Drawing more cards might let you go into Reckless Grease or something. I don't know. Basically, you have so much deck manipulation in the main, then this thing helps you filter even more. And there have been turns where I've gone for Saryuja while under Reckless Greed's lock, and that's gonna let me filter through cards even when my opponent thinks, oh well, you're not gonna see new cards for 2 more turns. Nope, this card helps you do that, so it helps play around Reckless Greed. It's just a big monster in general as well. And then Topologic Bomber Dragon, this thing hasn't ever come up, honestly. It's more in theory and just in case, but this thing is able to do a lot of damage because anytime it attacks a monster, you burn your opponent, so combined with its attack points, you're pretty much doing 3,000. That's a sizable chunk. And then anytime something is summoned, you just blow up everything on the field, which is pretty nice as well. It's just a very nice way of getting rid of annoying cards that may be hindering your progress. So it's in here more for theory than anything else, but I mean, having a random 15th card hasn't hurt me yet, so feel free to experiment with whatever you feel is best in that slot. If you watched the video in its entirety, thanks! Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing the creation of this deck as much as I did throwing this abomination together. We'll start off with the main deck here. For artifacts, we got 1 Moral Attack and Double Scythe, then we got triple Lady of Lament and triple Thunder King Ryo, and that's it for monsters. Slim count so that we can play our triple Card of Demise, Monster Reborn, double Pot of Desires, triple Pot of Duality, Raigeki, triple Scapegoat, and then for traps we have triple Artifact Sanctum, double Back to the Front, triple Reckless Greed, double Ring of Destruction, triple Solemn Strike and a single Solemn Warning, double Storming Mirror Force, and double Torrential Tribute for a 40-card main deck. And then for our extra deck, which is mostly based off of our Scapegoat tokens, we have Link Spider and Kuriboh at Link rating 1. Then we have for Link 2, Akashic Magician, 𝗍𝗐, the World Chalice Priestess, Nightmare Phoenix, Mrs. Radiant, and Proxy Dragon. Then for Link 3s, we have 𝗮𝗄𝗑, Nightmare Unicorn, and 𝗮𝗓𝗄, World Chalice Warrior. And then we have for Link 4s, 𝗮𝗨𝗨 Dragon, Firewall Dragon, Nightmare Griffin, Saryuja Skull Dread, and 𝗍𝗿𝗍𝗍𝗲 Dragon, though as I mentioned, that last card is really more of just, in theory it's pretty good, but it didn't come up, so feel free to customize that, or any part of this deck really, to your liking. That's the end of this video, but if you'd like to see more of this series, you can click the annotation on the right, or you can see the last video I did by clicking the one on the left. If you enjoyed, I encourage you guys to leave a like and share it with others you think who may enjoy it as well. And if you'd really like to see more updates, then subscribe to JD Gaming for more Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Thanks guys, this is JD Gaming, hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I'll see you guys next time.